The Liberal leadership race, well, it started. Front-runner Mark Carney is first out of the gate. He was recently in front of the Senate, and he pledged to maintain...
I'm sorry. Colleagues, I'm having difficulty hearing the... I am having difficulty hearing the honourable member from Peterborough, Northumberland, Peterborough South. I'll invite the honourable member to start from the top, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberal leadership race, well, it's underway. Front-runner Mark Carney is first out of the gate. He was in the Senate, confirming there and pledging that he would maintain the Prime Minister's punishing carbon tax. When asked about fiscal responsibility, well, there's no policies he's going to change. Mark Carney will continue the Liberal legacy of higher taxes, more spending, and poorer Canadians. Canadians, well, we just don't need another random Liberal making life more expensive. So whether it's carbon tax Carney or the current Prime Minister, Canadians continue to suffer. The more these Liberals spend, the worse things get. In contrast, a common-sense Conservative will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Let's bring it home!
Mr. Speaker, Mark Carney, who is the next Liberal leader, is a fierce supporter of the carbon tax. He's been called Carbon Tax Carney in the past, and he is willing at least to defend his carbon tax views in front of the premiers. The Prime Minister is not. He's running for cover and hiding from Canadians, refusing to defend his own policy decisions. If the Prime Minister is really so proud of his plan to hike the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre, why won't he listen to Mark Carney and have a big, open, televised carbon tax conference?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's very interesting that the Leader of the Opposition seems so fond of Mark Carney these days, who actually, as you say, does believe in a price on pollution. Perhaps the Leader of the Opposition should listen to him. But it is important with respect to the Premiers to know that the Premiers have every right to submit a plan that actually meets the federal benchmark and put in place their own price on pollution. That is something that British Columbia has done. That is something that Quebec has done. Mr. Speaker, Premier Moe was actually here recently and testified before the committee. And what Premier Moe said is he looked at alternatives to the price on pollution. He found every one of them to be too expensive. This from a guy who has no climate plan, no...
Tax Carney's crusade to be coronated as Liberal leader is in full swing. He's preaching the same radical agenda as this woke Prime Minister that doubled rents, mortgages, all on his path to quadrupling the carbon tax scam. Canadians are terrified at what carnage Carney will create. His silence on Liberal waste speaks volumes as this Prime Minister sends more taxpayer dollars and interest payments to Carney's Bay Street buddies than what goes to health transfers or to national defence. And after speaking at Senate, he fled to rub elbows with Ottawa high society to preach his radical agenda. He's more comfortable with Davos elites than in a room full of everyday, hard-working, struggling Canadians. Carbon tax Carney needs to show some courage, show up to the Finance Committee so he can answer what destructive path he'll take this country down. No common-sense Canadian can say that carbon tax Carney, the next Liberal leader, is any different than this woke, radical, out-of-touch Prime Minister.
We'll take no lessons from a government that's trampling over free speech rights by trying to control the internet and control what Canadians can see and post online. But, Mr. Speaker, for random Liberals hoping that when the outgoing Prime Minister finally leaves, a new Liberal leader will rescue them, they're about to be sorely disappointed. Mark Carbon Tax Carney continued his Liberal leadership campaign in the Senate yesterday, where he pushed the same radical agenda, endorsed the current Prime Minister's carbon tax, and couldn't come up with even a penny to cut in wasteful spending. If Mark Carbon Tax Carney won't do it, the current Prime Minister won't do it, will somebody over there axe the tax and fix the budget?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I am really delighted to hear the Conservative House Leader talk about the rights of Canadians and how important they are. I'm a woman, I'm a mother, and let me tell you what the most fundamental right of every woman and girl in Canada is the right to control your own body. It is time for the Conservatives to stand up and clearly say, are they going to defend a woman's right to choose? Because what we're hearing from them is they want to end it.
Once again, he didn't answer the question, and I'm not really sure what that was. But if he won't listen to Canadians, and they won't listen to their NDP caucus, the Prime Minister won't listen to his successor, Mark Carney, who also wants him to meet with premiers. They won't give us a date. They won't give us a time. They won't tell us what channel to watch. The Prime Minister won't even show up here and answer to this motion. The Prime Minister is being defiant when Canadians are lining up at food banks in record numbers. What are you covering for?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has repeatedly said he is all ears. If there is a better plan, put it on the table. Premier Moe himself said this was the most cost-effective plan, and that's why our government will keep going with it while maintaining our AAA credit rating, while maintaining the lowest debt-to-GDP ratio in the G7, and while maintaining historically low unemployment. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we will always vote with Canadians and support them along the way.
Well, after 9 years, Madam Speaker, it's on them, and they have to do something about it. The Liberal leadership race is well underway, I see, and it seems like the new guy is just like the old guy. Mark Carney testified at the Senate, and surprise, surprise, he announced his support for this Prime Minister's failed carbon tax. Carbon tax Carney couldn't commit to cutting a penny from the Prime Minister's reckless spending. These random Liberals really have a lot in common. If carbon tax Carney won't, and this Prime Minister won't, will someone over there have Canadians' backs and axe the tax?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, if we're going to talk about having Canadians' backs, let's talk about the work that we're doing to protect the environment while making the life more affordable for them through the carbon rebates. In fact, if you look at economists, and over 300 economists have signed a letter stating this very fact, Canadians receive more on average through the rebate than they pay through any carbon pricing. In fact, in Ontario, the average family at the end of the year has $300 more through the carbon rebate. I'm listening to the economists.
We won't take any lessons from the worst immigration and housing minister in Canadian history. And now we have Mark Carbon Tax Carney preaching the same radical agenda in his Liberal leadership like this Prime Minister. He won't announce the Liberal carbon tax and commit to cutting 1 penny of Liberal waste. Whether it's Carney or this Prime Minister, the inflation driving deficits will continue. And just like the carbon tax scam, none of them are worth the cost. Will any other Liberal leadership candidate stand up today, show some common sense, and declare they'll finally axe the tax?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, it's understandable why Conservatives want to throw up some smoke screens. It's been a very bad couple of weeks to be a Conservative in this country. First of all, they cavort with white extremists. Then their leader says we're going to have an a la carte Charter of Rights where we're going to take away your rights on a whim. And now, Mr. Speaker, we have a female candidate for a Conservative nomination alleging criminal content in the conduct of her nomination, identity fraud, false information. When will they stand up for law and order, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, we're finding out today from the Bank of Canada that the Prime Minister is not worth the cost. In September, the bank governor said that if government spending were to grow, then interest rates would have to stay high. That was echoed by the former bank governor and incoming Liberal leader, Mark Carney, who indicated that he does not expect rates to fall quickly, and that is partly because of a lack of fiscal discipline. So if he won't listen to me, why won't he listen to his successor and understand that he's not worth the cost of high interest rates?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation. Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I hope the Conservative will listen this time because Canadians are watching at home. Mr. Speaker, we will take no lessons from the Conservative. On this side of the House, we have a plan to build more houses. We have a plan to build more prosperity in this country. We have a plan to create more jobs, Mr. Speaker. On the other side, they have slogan, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are smart. They understand that slogans don't build homes. They understand that slogans don't create jobs. They understand that slogans don't create prosperity. Mr. Speaker,